Hi, I'm Brandon Dunlap, Managing Director of Research with Brightfly, and we're here today in the offices of Presensoft in Houston, Texas, with CEO and founder David Pulaski. So IAM's been around for a decade now at this point. You've been involved in this space for 5 or 6 years. What makes you more optimistic now than you were, say, 2 years ago?
The last couple of years, the thing that's excited me the most is competition, and nothing is better for technology than competition. But what we've seen is that everyone is competing in the IAM hygiene space. Every company is kind of pulling together towards gateway appliances to provide this IAM hygiene, which to us is really about restriction. What we really want to see is the addition of new technology such as IAM caller ID and encryption, which we are releasing, which basically allows you to have that security component. And security gives you protection. So if you go from IAM hygiene, which is restriction, and you can truly add in security, which is protecting data, then you have that component of trust. And when you have trust, then you're enabled. You've enabled your workforce to be more productive, to be more efficient, and to produce better results.
So, David, what is it exactly that drove you into IAM of all the different spaces in the technology market today?
When I first learned about instant messaging, I kind of thought about my first job, which was at Lehman Brothers. I was working in their retail brokerage division. And I would remember every morning going into work, and you'd find out what stock was added or subtracted from the recommended list, and you'd have your list of customers you needed to call who owned that security, for example. And, with the telephone, you're blindly calling in the dark, and you're hoping someone's there, and you're leaving a message, and they're leaving a message for you. And with email, you're needing an answer to a question, and you're sending it to 5 different people in hopes that one person will respond and bothering the other 4 when you already have the answer. With instant messaging, you literally have a window into someone's availability through presence. So I could pick the customers who I needed to call first based on their availability. And that technology back then would have really, really helped me. And I realized how much it could help people going forward in almost every aspect of business.
So we've learned from our mistakes with email over the last 20 or so years regarding everything from archival, discovery, and security. It seems as though with the fastest growing technology in the world, IAM, we seem to have leapfrogged by light years what we know with email. Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
One of the things that we realized when we built our technology, started 7 years ago when we started working on it, was that the avenue that people were taking today, the IAM hygiene market, was kind of a gateway appliance. It was a quick and easy way to deal with, most of the problems that were out there in the marketplace. But if we, when we originally approached the topic, we took a step back and realized that to provide true trust in communications, again, the 4 things you need, authorization, archive, encryption, and authentication, those can't be accomplished at the gateway for public messaging. Because instant messaging is very, very different than email. With email, you own and control your own Exchange server or Lotus Box or whatever email system you may be using. With IAM, you don't control the server. Yahoo does. So when you put a gateway appliance in at your network level to monitor and manage IAM, you're basically sniffing data going over a wire and doing the best you can with it. What we realized was if you can't control the server, you have to control the application somewhere. And that somewhere is at the client at the desktop. So although we provide true enterprise-level management of instant messaging, we enforce policy where the application exists. Without that architecture, you can't provide the 4 levels that are required to have trusted communications. And that's why we've been spending all of this time building the IAM caller ID technology. Our objective is to leverage existing technology in the Microsoft environment. So by using standard SQL Server, standard IIS, and Microsoft Certificate Authority, you can build into our application all the security necessary to guarantee identity on both ends of the session.
While it's obvious that email still has its place, it seems that with the advent of instant messaging and the rapid acceptance in the enterprise, that place may not be first anymore. How do you feel about that?
And one of the things that's really interesting about that is when I originally got involved with instant messaging, it was the idea of presence that really drew me to it. And the longer you're involved in a technology, you get drawn in for one reason, and at the end of the day, you find 2 or 3 other aspects of the technology that really you find more compelling. So when we talk to people in compliance and in legal departments, what their real draw to instant messaging is that the size of the data for storage and the ease of retrieval is so much better than email. Because with instant messaging, you have one single file. When we chat and communicate back and forth is one appended conversation. With email, if you think about it, I have a sent item, then I have a received item from you. And each time we talk back and forth, it's really a duplicate of one conversation. But when I send you a conversation, each session I send you has a history of every previous session going back and forth on this one topic. So it grows exponentially in size, and it makes it extremely difficult for the retrieval of that data when you're trying to find a concise history of a communication. So in many cases where people were chatting or looking to have a quick answer or talk to people, they were doing it through email. And at the end of the day, instant messaging is going to start replacing a lot of email communications because it's a more efficient, more effective, and in many cases now more secure form of communication than email ever was.
So it seems a lot of the areas around instant messaging have been kind of reduced to commodities by a lot of the gateway, or shall we say perimeter security vendors. A lot of IM technology is being baked into mail gateways, into antivirus products, into other firewalling and application-specific border protection devices. What makes Presensoft's offering different from those vendors?
The base level IM hygiene tools provide a great function, and they allow instant messaging to exist when the compliance and regulatory requirements are high, but not that high. The area that they don't address is the area of business-to-consumer relationships, such as healthcare with HIPAA and personal finance, which requires a much higher level of security and privacy and authentication than you would have between two businesses communicating with each other over, business transactions. So with that said, we've been able to provide through our architecture, which is very different than the gateway and hygiene vendors, we've been able to add in the two components that are really missing to those 4 layers of trust, which is encryption, peer-to-peer, and also authentication. Truly knowing and documenting inside of the IM window and the communication record who it is you're talking to. For one of our customers, for example, you have 20,000 employees, 500 are B2B, 19,500 communicate with consumers every single day. And we're providing for the first time the ability to allow that conversation to take place and abide by every single restriction out there.
So being someone who's on the cutting edge of this technology and participating very heavily in this space, obviously, give us a kind of a view into your crystal ball, the next 12, 18, 24 months. What's next? What's on the horizon?
The byproduct of proper authentication isn't just trust. It's also value in retrieval and efficiency in retrieval. So that if I can authenticate my own employee through our network directory, but I can use this IM caller ID or some other external authentication methodology, I can literally pull needles out of a haystack when I'm doing my collections in e-discovery if I'm involved, for example, in any litigation. So if I have an employee who's talking to someone on the other end who may have downloaded any number of IM clients with any number of buddy names, showing any number of display names, and my employee can change the display name that he shows for that individual. But with this IM caller ID, I can brand every conversation with this person's true identity. When it comes time for collections and presenting data in a court of law, I don't have to look through anything. I ask the system to show me the result. If you're involved in litigation and the person who you're in litigation against shows up into a court of law with information that it looks like you failed to disclose because you simply couldn't find it, that doesn't bode very well for your case. And with IM caller ID and two-party authentication, pulling the needle out of the haystack 100% accurate every time, that can provide an amazing ROIM, which we've coined as return on instant messaging and in the investment in the technology.